friends who are going to be joining us today, and I want to just double check to make sure we're all here. I have, let me see, I have Allison, and if I pronounce your last name wrong, I apologize. Allison Balaguer, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Gallagher.
Balaguer, I'm sorry.
No.
Of Bakes of Alley, you were an Eastlake High School class of 2019 grad.
Mhm.
And then we have speaker 2, who is Daphne Tortoles. Did I say that correct?
Yes, you said it right.
Perfect. Of Cafe DAF, and you are an OHS class of 2017 grad. And then Alyssa Castillo. Is Alyssa here?
I think she wasn't gonna make it today. I think she said she spoke to someone, but I think she has.
Gotcha. Perfect. So we have 2 great speakers here with us today, and I'm just going to be going through and asking you some questions. So before I go in with these questions, we can start with Allison. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Okay. Hi, I'm an Eastlake High School graduate. I'm currently a nursing student at San Diego State. And I started off selling crinkle cookies, but now I sell like a variety of baked goods from like madeleines, cupcakes, brownies, that kind of thing. Some of them inspired by Filipino flavors and others just suggestions from customers. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison. And Daphne, what about you? A little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Hi, guys. My name is Daphne. I graduated from Olympian High School in 2017. I'm the owner of Cafe DAF. A little bit about my business. I make French pastries for the most part. I specialize in French macarons, but I do also provide other desserts like au flan cupcakes, things that are also centered around our culture. So, yeah.
All right, very fun. Thank you. So I have a couple of lists of questions, and I guess we can start with Allison first and then Daphne after. So question number 1, why did you want to work in the restaurant industry?
So actually, I didn't intend to work in the food industry. Before this, I actually used to work at a chocolate store. So that was kind of like what inspired me to do more and start my own small business. But one of the things was like I grew up baking desserts for like friends and family, bringing them to family parties. And it wasn't until like I had some like friends or family members actually be like, oh, hey, like you should actually start selling these. Um, and like being able to share what I make with other people and like seeing like how happy it makes everybody was something that kind of pushed me to start my own small business.
Right on. So a hobby that your family and friends kind of encourage you to keep doing. That's awesome. And Daphne, what about for you? What led you to wanting to work in the restaurant industry?
My story is also almost the same as Allie's, but I wanted to work in this industry because I strongly believe that food connects people. And I also used to work in several restaurants prior to forming my own business, and I saw that sharing meals would bind people together, and I thought that was really beautiful. I wanted to be a part of that communal bond, and I wanted to have something that people could, talk about and just connect with each other. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So our next question is, how did your family react when you told them of your plans initially to get into the restaurant business? I think both of you kind of hinted they were supportive a little bit. They kind of encouraged you, right? Could you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so my family was actually like very supportive. They kind of helped me get started with like finding the right supplies, materials, and like, taking me to Costco and stuff, buying things in bulk. And then another thing that they would help me with is sometimes like when I get really busy, they'll help me with labeling things and helping me if I need help like handling like people's picking up their order or delivering to like if I have like a lot of deliveries all over Chula Vista or San Diego, they'll help me out with that. Um, and then like kind of as like I learned what I need to do to take on large orders, they wanted to make sure that like I still put my education first. So it was really nice that they were able to be there and help me with whatever I needed help with, whether it's like labeling, picking up stuff from the store, delivering things, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison and Daphne. What about you? How did your family react?
They were very supportive as well. The more I grew as a business, it also made me grow like as an individual. They saw how independent I started getting with this business while in college. And the more that I started like gaining skills and learning how to like not only market, but speak to other people by myself, whether it was in person at farmers markets or, just through messaging, they saw that I was being pushed out of my bubble. I would like to say that I'm very much introverted, but also an extrovert. So they enjoyed seeing how happy I was and like just having this business, and baking has always been a passion of mine. They saw that it was a stress reliever from college. So they were very supportive of that. Every opportunity that I was given, they were there to support me. I see some people in the chat right now. Oh my gosh. Wait. See, like little people, like, oh my God, my brother's in here and one of my cousins are in here. Like just that self, like I literally love that. They're very supportive since day one. And I'm like super grateful for that because it's pushed me to just keep going with this.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear that both of your families have really kind of supported you through this journey. And definitely it probably wasn't easy at first, getting off the ground, but having that support definitely made it possible. So my next question is for eatery owners, how did you decide on what to serve, or how did you come up with the concept of your business? Did you start, with a bunch of different things on the menu, or did you limit to one or two and then build from there?
Like I mentioned earlier, I used to bake stuff and bring them to family parties. And like one of the things that I would almost always bring were ube crinkle cookies. So it was from there actually. So like that's something I've been making for like a few years. And then after that, people would suggest like, oh, like why don't you try other flavors? Um, so started with ube crinkles, and then I added more like buko pandan ones, chocolate, red velvet, and I just kind of took suggestions from friends, family, customers to help grow. And what I did was I used to like rotate different flavors each month, that kind of thing, or like seasonal flavors. And for the first few months, I did only just sell crinkle cookies, but then from there, with like requests from customers, I added on like I sell these like really like chunky like quarter-pound cookies. And someone requested Madeleine, so then I learned how to make Madeleines. Now I sell like different types of brownies, like cheesecake brownies, ube brownies. And then I also recently just started selling cupcakes as well. So it just kind of, well, it started off with just the crinkles, but then with like customer suggestions and as my business grew, I started to add like more things to my menu.
Very cool. And so, kind of taking that little risk to try new things and see what people recommend. And you're like, oh, that actually worked out. That's really cool to hear. Daphne, what about you?
So I actually started my business around February of last year for the sole purpose of Valentine's Day. So I wanted to provide something to people that was very unique, but also easy to share and eat. And I've made macarons before as just like tiny gifts for friends. And I've always associated them with like love, just because it's from the city of Paris and like macarons are a French delicacy. And I wanted to give people that little symbol of love from the city of love on a day about spreading and giving love. So like it started from there, and then I didn't know that I was going to be very invested in this in the future, and I started making other things like cupcakes, and I've done like bibinka and other cultural desserts that I've tried like mixing into the menu, but I have been sticking to macarons lately just because you could change the flavor, you could change the design or the little customizations for them. But yeah, the concept it really stemmed from Valentine's Day. And yeah.
And so were you just planning on, being open just for Valentine's Day and only doing it seasonally? And then it kind of
Yeah, I
grew
was
from there?
I honestly just was thinking I'll just do this for Valentine's Day and just have something for people to give to other people. And the next thing you know, people are like, are you gonna make it again this week, are you gonna, and it just kept going, and it went to like Mother's Day, and then it went to 4th of July, and then each month passed, and I was like, I should just tweak these flavors and make them seasonal and do monthly orders. And now I'm here, like we just passed Mother's Day, and it was like a big thing for me. So yeah.
Wow, well, congratulations. I'm glad that, it's continued with that enthusiasm from the beginning. Everyone's still requesting stuff. So, um, hearing you guys talk about all of your success, obviously there are some challenges that we go through, especially when starting a new business. So what were, maybe one or two of the biggest challenges you've faced with your business so far?
So in terms of challenges, like, well, my biggest fear actually was like, so like as I mentioned before, like a lot of family and friends were supportive and like trying to push me to start my small business. But my biggest fear was like, what if nobody wants to buy anything from me? What if I'm gonna, start this small business and then I get no customers? Um, so like putting myself out there was probably one of the biggest challenges for me and like getting out of my comfort zone and trying to like reach out to other people. Another thing, like just like Daphne, we're both full-time students. So like balancing the business with school was another challenge and like a part-time job too as I work as an in-home caregiver. So I think that was probably very difficult, especially like I think Daphne can agree, like during testing season, midterm season, final season, and then you might like overbook yourself sometimes. And I think that one of the things that like helped with this was having like a supportive community and like having supportive family. And like even though I think my small business kind of started off very slow, it was a lot of like referrals and social media posts that help like promote and like get the word out.
Awesome. And Daphne, what about you? What challenges have you faced specifically?
With me, I actually, like, as I said earlier, I struggled with deciding if I wanted to go bigger and invest more into the business. So last year when I started, I was a junior in college, and I was very focused on like all of my classes. But one of the biggest obstacles was having to manage all like these assignments and tests while also being there for my customers. Like I did struggle a bit too with pricing because not many businesses in San Diego sell macarons. So I didn't want to underprice it and undermine my work, but I also didn't want to overprice it and like, just like have a superiority complex. I didn't want to do any of that. So, but like with more skills that I obtained, um, and with how much my business grew, I realized that this obstacle shouldn't have been an obstacle because it was my work that people were like seeing, and I shouldn't have like undervalued myself in any way. So yeah, those are two obstacles. Just trying to manage school and the business, and also reminding myself that like not to like just undermine myself throughout the whole process.
All right, to congratulate yourself for all the great things that you've done so far. So definitely agree with that. So this kind of, still relates to the challenges, but what specifically have you and your business gone through during the pandemic? Did you find that it was challenging to kind of navigate, or was, business booming during the pandemic?
So I actually started my business during the pandemic when I moved back home from school. Um, but I think that one of the things that was difficult was probably like trying to get customers during a pandemic when nobody really wants to leave their house, you know what I mean? But I think that using social media um, like promote our small business is something that would help reach other customers. For example, like there's the East Lake Food to Go page on Facebook, or like I have my own Instagram and Facebook page, and I try to be active on both to try to reach a lot of people in the community. But I think that uh, reaching new customers during the pandemic is always a hard thing. Like for me, like when I first started, like every time I got an order from a stranger that I didn't know, like that was like the best feeling when it was someone you didn't know.
Yeah, and Daphne, what about you? Did you have some of the same challenges during the pandemic? Is just reaching out to people?
For the most part, yes. I actually started right when the pandemic hit. Like yeah, so February, the pandemic hit like in March, right? Everyone started quarantining. That changed my whole business model. So I had to try to be as organized as possible while also ensuring to my customers that I was safe and me handling their orders was also safe. So yeah, like with social media and stuff, I'm glad that existed because I was able to reach out to my customers, like each and every single one, and ensure that their orders were still being fulfilled in the safest manner. Instead of like in-person pickups or like handing it off to people, I had to like change my whole setup to do like a contactless pickup, like a social distancing thing. I had to sanitize everything, and it just continued, and that's still my business model right now since we are in a pandemic still. So like business did start to boom during the pandemic because just like with East Lake Food to Go, I'm really grateful for that page because it like helped spread my business. Um, and yeah, like it did boom, but it did change the way I was initially going to run my business.
Yeah, definitely had to make changes to kind of, think about what the pandemic does and how it affects us too as customers and how we buy from vendors like you. So another question is, how do you market? I mean, I know you both say that your social media is one of your best ways to kind of get your name and your business out there. But how do you market to appeal to diverse clientele?
So for me, I think one of the most important things in appealing to like diverse clientele is like having variety. So like at first when I started, like the first thing I knew how to make was ube crinkles, and obviously that's something that's centered around like Filipino culture. So that's not something that everyone else from different backgrounds would they're not gonna know what ube tastes like if you're not from like the same culture. So one of the things that I used to do is I would include like little samples of different flavors in other people's orders so that they got to try other things that they're not familiar with. And then taking suggestions from customers was also a huge thing because then that way I was able to appeal to like what other people wanted other than just like the flavors that I was familiar with. So I think definitely customer suggestions is a big thing in being able to appeal to more people. And then like the giving samples helps them also like because some people are like, what's ube? Like what's buko pandan? Like what does that taste like? So like just including samples and it actually like helped a lot of people from different backgrounds are like, oh, I actually like ube, and then they'll come back and order the Filipino flavors too.
Very cool. So customers and getting their suggestions kind of seems what worked for you. What about you, Daphne? How do you appeal to different people of different cultures and getting them into our desserts?
So I actually rotated my flavors, and I still continue to rotate my flavors each month with the seasons and the holidays. Um, I made sure that I could. Well, I would reach out to other small businesses actually. I think there was one time last year I reached out to Ali because I wasn't very much a fan of matcha and I didn't really know how that tasted. I don't know if you remember that, but I was like, girl, I need help with matcha because I don't know if this is too strong. And I would just reach out to other small businesses of different backgrounds um, and ask them like, does this taste how it's supposed to taste? And I would get their input on things, and then I would also tweak it to my liking as well, and then just hope for the best, hope that my customers would like them. But I really am grateful for my other for the small business community and for always staying connected with me and for reaching out and always being open to giving me ideas as well and things that I could change. Like I always took criticism like I loved when they would tell me like, no, it's too sweet, or no, it's too bitter. Like, I think you should add more of this and this. So yeah, like reaching out to other small businesses really helped me a lot.
Beautiful. And it's nice to hear that the small business community is working together too during this time and supporting one another. That's so good to see and hear about. So my next question is, what advice do you have for students who want to open their own restaurant or pursue, culinary arts in the future? What advice would you have for them?
Something that I would say is like, don't let fear or the thought of failure prevent you from taking the step to like open up your own like eatery, restaurant, that kind of thing. because like honestly, like if family and friends didn't like tell me like, why don't you start selling this, or like, oh, like these are really good, like you should tell these other people, then I honestly probably wouldn't have started my small business. So like one day I just decided like, okay, you know what, like I'm gonna try this, I'm just gonna do it, I'm gonna put myself out there. And then that's when I created my Instagram and Facebook account. So I think that like just as long as you're doing what you love and like you're doing what you're good at and just build on it, like I think you'll be successful if you just do that. Yeah, just definitely if you're scared, like just take the risk and do it. Like don't let that be the reason you're not going to like pursue what you want to.
And Daphne, what about you?
I would say don't give up. Like there's gonna be times when business is slow, but that doesn't mean that your work is bad, like at all. I would also say don't ever undermine or undervalue your work either, because at the end of the day, you know how much work you put into it. And if there's someone who wants to question or challenge that, I would say just as scary as it could be, just stand your ground, um, because it's your work and there's people that will love it and value it. And it's, yeah, just don't give up and just don't undervalue yourself during the whole process.
Thank you for those words of encouragement. And now my last question is, what is your favorite food to prepare and your favorite food to eat?
So my favorite food to prepare is actually not any like baked desserts or anything. My favorite food to prepare is actually fried rice, because it's something that's just like super easy to make, and you can literally turn like any leftovers into fried rice, like leftover chicken, steak, spam, anything, you can just like throw it in there. And I think like it doesn't take a lot of prep time because I hate long prep time. But I would say, yeah, fried rice is definitely my favorite thing to cook. And my favorite food is actually pasta, specifically anything with pesto. Like one of my favorite restaurants for Italian food is Buona Forchetta. They have such good pesto. But yeah.
Thank you. Now I'm getting hungry. I want some fried rice and some pasta. Daphne, what about you? What's your favorite food to eat and prepare?
Oh man. Well, other than macarons, because I really like making those. I would say if we're talking savory, I would say cream cheese wontons because they're easier to make than I expected. They're very easy to make. And like with sweet stuff, acai bowls, like you could just blend something up, put all these fruits together, you're good. And I also recently discovered how to make Korean corn dogs. And that is also one of my favorite things to eat. Like you could catch me at Convoy like every weekend eating Korean corn dogs. But now that I know how to make them, I could save like $8. So yeah.
So are we adding these to the menu is what I'm hearing? Macarons and corn dogs? Sounds like a lunch for me.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. And then there was a question in the chat earlier that I saw. And so I'll just ask both of you, how did you, start getting into baking and cooking? Was it, you were just interested, or were you working with, your mom or family in the kitchen?
So I actually growing up, my dad, we would always make oatmeal cookies, and we would buy like the big thing of Quaker oats, and like on the back of the lid there was an oatmeal cookie recipe. So that's what I grew up doing with my dad. And that's something that kind of got me into baking. So like ever since then, like that's where I think my like passion for baking stemmed from. And then just wanting to try new desserts, like, oh, like people that have like their baking vlogs, I would just kind of look and browse and be like, oh, that looks good. Like I want to try that. And so just trying new things, um, pretty much self-taught. Yeah, I didn't really go to culinary school or anything, just trial and error.
Very nice. And Daphne, what about you? How did you get into the baking world?
Ooh. Okay, so I'm pretty sure when we were all younger, like Manny Pacquiao fights were a big thing. Like there'd always be family gatherings, it'd always be buffet style. Like everyone would bring their dish, and I don't know what age it was, but I was in elementary school and I wanted to bring sweets because I knew that my cousins would always crave like desserts, but we love the traditional Filipino food, but we were always missing something sweet. So I was like, okay, let's bake some brownies or something. So yeah, it started with that. I started baking brownies and everyone loved it. And it just stemmed from there, just bringing food for, or bringing my baked goods to family parties. And like what Allison said before, like her family was very encouraging and supportive. And they were like, start a business, do this. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll do that in the future. Little did I know, like last year I'd start my business like this. But yeah, it started with family parties and that support and that encouragement.
Very cool. And so I see a question in the chat from Monica. Monica is wondering, have you ever dealt with difficult customers? And if you have, how do you, go about that professionally?
So in terms of dealing with customers, I mean, you're going to deal with difficult people wherever you're at, whatever setting, school, work, wherever. But I think one of the biggest things for dealing with difficult customers is just like one, like keeping your cool, like don't get mad at them. Like you don't want to, what's the word? Like you don't want to like burn any bridges with anybody. You know what I mean? Like networking is a huge part of creating your small business, and um, you don't want to be rude to your customers, and like if they may be difficult, like you want to just try to be as professional as possible, um, and definitely just yeah, like definitely just try to stay cool, keep your calm, like don't get upset with them, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Allison and Daphne. What about you?
Thankfully, I haven't had like, I guess, a difficult customer. I've had like some people question like why I price things the way I price things. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, like what Ali said, I just keep your cool. Don't take it like offensively because like they might not know. Whenever they do ask that, I just try to not educate them, but I let them know like how the process is, and so they can see how much labor is actually put into it, so they can understand our work at least. But yeah, we just try to keep it professional at all times, and calm, because they might not know how the process is. And yeah, networking is a big thing too. You wouldn't want to burn any bridges. But yeah, just keep it calm. Do your
Keep it
thing.
calm and cool. I
Yes.
love it. I have another question from, I believe it's Keisha, maybe Kesha. How do you get your recipes for your business? Did you start by searching them up, or do you kind of make it up as you go? What's your process for finding your recipes?
So it's kind of like half and half for me. So when I first started, I only knew how to make ube crinkles. So since I already knew like, okay, this is one thing I know how to make that tastes good the way it is. So I started off with making alterations from that recipe for other flavors. And I think I spent like a week in the kitchen just trying like different things to figure out like what worked for me, um, and what worked for when I wanted to try new flavors. So trial and error is definitely how I had to come up with like other flavors for cookies. Um, but when like I do want to try new things and experiment, like I'll look up at people's like cooking blogs, or just kind of yeah, just kind of like Google different things if I just, want to experiment or try new things. But yeah, so it's kind of half, searching things up, half like making it up as I go, and just, trial and error, having people sample like, hey, I tried this out today. What do you think of this? Like, because for me, like I appreciate honest feedback from people. Like, I don't want people to just tell me like, oh yeah, it was good. Like any feedback is appreciated, like because if it's going to help me improve, then like I definitely appreciate that feedback from other people, and like I'm not going to take any offense to it.
Thank you. Daphne?
Yeah, it was the same, half and half. In the beginning, I did search up recipes before, like from other macaron artists. But yeah, with these cookies, they're very finicky. They're the cookie that people try to avoid, because weather, like wrong equipment, all those things really contribute to how it turns out. So, like, as far as recipes go, I do have a set recipe that I found worked for San Diego, at least, because our climate is mainly warm for the most part, and the humidity is kind of stable. But when it comes to like rainy days and stuff, I do tweak the recipe just a little bit. um, but yeah, before in the beginning it was I would search up what I had to do, but I kind of tweaked it based on our location and our community and what we liked all together.
Wow, that's so interesting. I didn't know that the weather would change the way a cookie comes out of the oven. That's so interesting to learn. Thank you, ladies, for sharing that with us. Are there any other questions that anybody has and would like to ask or type in the chat, and I can ask our guests today? Maybe, maybe not. Yes, they are so super impressive, brave, amazing role models to look up to. I am not a good baker or cooker at all, but I am just inspired to get in the kitchen and try to make something super simple like chocolate chip cookies just from this talk. So thank you everyone for being here. Oh, is there a challenge you'd like to take on maybe with your business? Is that Mabel is asking? Is there a challenge with your business you think you're ready to take on? Maybe adding more foods, maybe joining forces and having a collaboration? Is there any challenges you see in your future?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, actually, I do custom orders for macarons. Like if you see the little cows on the page, to me, custom orders are always a challenge. And if you give me an idea, I like going off on my own like tangent sometimes. But if you want me to like do a specific thing, that's always going to be a challenge for me because I don't want to mess anything up. But I guess another challenge would be trying to get into restaurants now, like having my cookies in the restaurants. So that's something to look forward to.
Beautiful. Allison, what about you?
I think for me, one of the things I want to do is I want to be able to spread my business outside of like Chula Vista, San Diego area. Um, like I have been able to ship baked goods from here to like Florida, where else? I think like Washington, Oregon, Nevada, but I think that um, I want to just try to like keep my business growing and try to like spread it to more and more people if I can. And yeah.
Wow, shipping across the United States, that's insane. Good for you. Yes, and Mabel says having goals is important. I love it. I love seeing the progression and the wanting to build and further push our small businesses. Another question, Monica says, how do you ship without breaking the cookies?
So this was actually one of my problems. So what I started out doing was I asked one of my cousins that lived in another state, and I was like, hey, like, can I ship some cookies to you? And just tell me like, one, do these still taste fresh? Like, are they stale? Are they hard? Are they gross? Like, and then two, like, are they intact when they get there? So what I first used to do was I used to like plastic wrap them individually, and I would put like newspaper in there to kind of like cushion it. But when they would get there, they would kind of like break and they wouldn't be whole. So what I found worked for me was I would still plastic wrap them, but I'll plastic wrap them in pairs. So I'll put two cookies together and it kind of what's where it creates a more like solid base. So then when I was shipping those out to like my friends and family first, I found that shipping them like in pairs is what helped prevent them from breaking. And then the saran wrap, like using plastic wrap, helped keep the freshness. Like I even had one from that took like a week from here to Florida, and then the customer told me that like it still tasted fresh. So I think that the plastic wrap is definitely what helps like keep the freshness and helps keep everything like look nicely when it gets to the customer.
Wow, that is insane. Daphne, have you shipped any products or?
Oh, no, I have not.
No.
Yeah, no, with macarons within the community, they're like, it's strongly suggested not to ship them because they break easily. And I'm like, oh my God, that sucks. But I've had people travel with them in their carry-ons, which is really cool. So they've gone to like Hawaii, they've gone to like Seattle already, like in New York, which is cool, but I still have yet to figure out how to ship these cookies. They're so stubborn. They're so stubborn.
Well, I think one of the biggest things I'm taking away from our discussion today is how you ladies always keep pushing and persevering, you know, and it may not work out the first time and you just slightly adjust and things get better as they go. And so I love hearing that from you. So a big round of applause to you. We are almost out of time. I know your Instagram and Facebook tags are posted, but if you wouldn't mind typing them in the chat so our friends could, you know, copy paste them real quick, that would be great. If you have any other questions, please feel free to type them into the chat. But if not, thank you so much for coming to our session today. And I believe lunch